So today we're going to look at TripleO minor updates. So another thing that can often confuse people or cause a bit of anxiety is the minor update process. It's fairly in depth. So what we're going to do is we're going to break it down step by step, explain what each step does, why it's important, and how you can troubleshoot each of those steps. So the first thing you want to do though, before you start any update or any operation, is you want to make a backup. So to make a backup, the first thing we're going to do is back up the undercloud. So the first thing we need is the password for the database, which we can get from data, which is the command shown on the screen. So once we've got the password for the MySQL database, then we can run a command inside the container to dump the database. So we can see there that I'm doing podman exec, and then we're execing into the MySQL container. Then we're just going to run mysql-u root password with the password that we copied from here. So we need to set that as an environment variable. Then we're going to use the option for all databases, and we're just going to dump it out to undercloud all databases.sql. So while that runs, let's jump over to our overcloud and we'll start to make a backup on the overcloud as well. So this is our controller node. This is where we want to be. So we want to SQL dump. So we're just going to do the same thing here, right? We're just going to do podman exec it --c and then pass it this command. Basically the same command. We're just going to do single transaction, all databases. We're going to dump it to overcloud DB. Okay, so once we've got that back up, we also want to get the grants. So let's just exec into the container. And then to capture the grants, and I'll put this command in the description as well, just to help out because it's quite a complex command, but we want to capture the grants. So if anything does go wrong and we need to restore this database, we want to do so with the same permissions, usernames, passwords that we have right now so that everything keeps working. So we're going to dump that to the grants file. So we have a look here. Oops. We can see that I have a grant, I will have two, but my grants file that I've created today. So then we're going to exit and we're just going to copy that grants file. So there it is there. We're just going to copy it from within the container to the current directory that we're in. It doesn't really matter. So we can see I've copied that file now. So now we've made backups. That's really the most important part to starting the minor update process. Make sure you have a backup. Make sure your templates are all in Git. Make sure you're all sorted and ready to go. So once we've made a backup, the next thing we want to do is make sure we have all of the repositories available. So we follow along with the documentation upstream that I will link below. It'll mention setting up the repositories, making sure you've got the latest DeLorean repository. So this command on the screen, what this is going to do, this is going to go out and talk to the web server for the repos, and it's going to pull down the latest version of the TripleO repos and just install that. So for example, if I run that, so we can see it's done a curl. It's found the latest version of the TripleO repos RPM, and it's going to install that. So that's a pretty handy command. I'll leave that in the description below. Once you've done that, we just want to set up TripleO repos again. So once you've got the latest version of TripleO repos installed, then we do a sudo -e TripleO repos, and then choose whichever branch you're on. You might be on Train, Victoria, whatever it might be. So in my case, I'm just on current. So I'm just doing TripleO repos current. So once you've set up the TripleO repos to the latest repository and you've got that all set up, ready to go, you've selected which branch you want to be on, then the next thing is to update the Python TripleO client, OpenStack TripleO Common, and OpenStack TripleO Heat templates. The most important one here being the Python TripleO client, because if something has changed in the way that we do the update for the undercloud, it's the Python TripleO client that has the commands for OpenStack undercloud upgrade, so it's important to do. And these other files are actually updated as part of the OpenStack undercloud upgrade anyway. But it's just good practice to be in, just to update them all, make sure they're all the most current, make sure you're all good to go. So once that's been done, then we need to generate the latest version of the container images. So we can run openstack TripleO container image prepare. So that will generate the latest file for, so it just generates your container image prepare file. This tells it where to pull all of the container images from. So we're pulling them from Quay. We're going to use the tag current TripleO, and the prefix for all of our containers will be openstack-. And once that has been created, then we just run openstack undercloud upgrade. So just openstack undercloud upgrade. And that's going to prompt you to make sure you've made a backup, which we have. And we're just going to wait for that to complete. So once that's completed, once your undercloud upgrade has completed, I'm not going to run mine again because I've already done it. So the next thing we need to do is run the OpenStack overcloud update prepare. So I've got an update script here, and this has my update prepare command. This should be exactly the same as your deploy command. So if you just copy what you've got in your deploy script for this section, we just want to put that directly into another script, and we want to change the argument at the top to OpenStack overcloud update prepare. And what this is going to do is this is going to render all of our playbooks that we're going to use for the update with the latest version of OpenStack TripleO heat templates. And you also have the latest version of TripleO Ansible. So it's going to have all of the latest things and prepare them in a bunch of playbooks, which we can see back in our config download directory. We go to overcloud and update steps playbook. So it's going to render this playbook and all of the associated playbooks that are required to do the minor update. So there should really be no changes during that time. If you look at the code for train, so if I go back to my terminal here, we git checkout stable train. So we can see here we've got a couple of extra environment files. So if we look at update prepare, for example, we can see that in train it was setting the pre and post config tasks to none. So it's not going to run any of those tasks during the prepare. And if we go back to Queens, just for those that are still on Queens, so we have a full picture, that same file is setting the deployment steps, workflow steps, pre and post config to OS heat none. So it's not going to execute any of those items during the update prepare. We're simply doing it so that we can render the latest version of those playbooks and we can make sure we're ready to run the update. So once the prepare has completed, then the next thing we do is we do OpenStack overcloud update run, and we just specify whichever role we want to do. So the last one that I did was my compute node, so I still need to do my compute del. So we'll change that, and we'll run that. And what that's doing, we could do it manually if we wanted to. We go, so this is where our playbooks are executed from. So we would basically just be running this same command, except we would be specifying the update steps playbook instead. So we would be doing this. Update steps playbook, and then we'd just be doing a limit and, for example, compute. And that will run against the compute node. That's exactly the same as doing that OpenStack overcloud update run. That's all it's doing. We're just executing the playbooks. So we can follow along with that over on this screen. And again, I'll pause the video, I'll come back at the end of this, and then we will run through the Converge, what the Converge means and what it does. And that will be the end of our update. So we will catch up again soon. Okay, so we can see that our update of the Dell compute node has completed there now. There's no failed tasks, so we're all good. So at this stage, we need to do the Converge. So what is the Converge? We know that TripleO heat templates utilize Puppet modules to write the configurations. We've seen that in previous videos. And we know that when we updated the undercloud, we updated TripleO heat templates. So we can't configure those services until we've updated all of the Puppet modules on the overcloud nodes. And that's what the update run has done. It's downloaded the new Puppet modules, it's downloaded all the updates using just a DNF update or a Yum update if it's an older version of TripleO. So now we know we have the latest version of Puppet modules, we have the latest version of TripleO heat templates. Now we can actually proceed to configure the services using those new parameters. And that all happens during the Converge. So we briefly looked at in Train and Queens how we set the deployment actions, deployment steps, workflow steps to OS heat none so that they don't get executed during prepare. So if we look at the update Converge, we can see that we're setting them back. So in Queens, we'll set them back so that we're re-enabling the deployment steps and workflow steps. So we can see for my deployment of TripleO, we're setting the pre and post config to OS heat none like we looked at during the prepare, and it also sets the DNF stream for the container modules. If we look at the Converge now, we're just setting some things back to empty values. So what's going to happen during the Converge in my environment now is we're going to run a deployment, and we're actually going to configure all the services using the new Puppet modules. So it's basically just a normal overcloud deploy at this time, but we remove some of those things that we had previously set to OS heat none. So for example, in update prepare where we set these ones to OS heat none, because we're removing that from the update Converge, they'll go back to what they're defined as by default in TripleO heat templates because we're not overriding them in an environment file. So again, just to recap, these files get appended to your list of environment files with your deploy command. And while we're here, we can have a quick look at that. Make sure we have the latest version, so we're looking at exactly the same code I'm running in that environment. We'll go into TripleO client, v1. So in here we have overcloud update, update.py, and if we go down to Converge, so we can see that we're appending here. So prepend environment files, and one of them that we're appending is the constants update Converge environment. If we go into constants.py and we do a search for that, we can see that it's using the update Converge environment file. So that's being appended to the list of environment files that we're providing as part of our update Converge command. So we go back to the environment and we have a look at our update script again. We can see that we have update Converge here. This is our list of environment files that we're passing. Now I did make a slight change, so I need to change that again, otherwise I'm going to deploy the wrong container images. So we will just change this in the update Converge command. It's very important to make sure this stays exactly the same. We don't want any unintended changes during a minor update. We should just do a minor update, and anything we want to change we should do as a post event on a separate event on its own. So now we're going to run the update Converge. So to do that, we just run our update script and then update Converge, since we have a bash function in there for update Converge. So again, that's just going to rerun a normal deployment now. We're resetting those things that we previously set in the update prepare using the update converge.yaml file that is appended as part of TripleO client code when we run the Converge. So we'll let that run and we will come back when that is finished. Okay, so our update Converge has completed now. So at this stage, everything's been done that needs to be done. We could rerun another deploy now at this stage and it would work. The update is completely finished and there's no other steps for us here. So just to recap, the first thing we did was we generated the new container images so that we have the new container images available with our container images prepare command. Then the next thing we did was we installed the new TripleO repositories and updated OpenStack TripleO heat templates, TripleO common, and Python TripleO client. Then we run OpenStack undercloud upgrade, and that process just updates all the services, rewrites the configuration files for those services with any changes that need to be made, pulls in the latest container images and restarts the services with the latest containers. And that ensures that the undercloud is ready to orchestrate that upgrade of the overcloud. The next thing we need to do is run OpenStack overcloud update prepare. And the update prepare will render in the new update playbooks that are required. So that update steps playbook.yaml that we looked at, along with any of the associated playbooks that are required for the update. And if you go into TripleO Heat templates and look for update tasks, you can see all the tasks that get rendered into that. So if we just take a quick look here. So we can see all the update task sections. So those sections all become the playbooks that are used to update services and to update the overcloud. And that will pull in the new container images on the overcloud nodes. So that happens when we run the OpenStack overcloud update run, and then we specify the role we want to run it for. So we first run it for our controller role. And these updates run with a serial value that's defined in the roles data YAML file. So if we do vi roles YAML, so we can see we have update serial defined in roles data YAML, and this ensures that we only do that number of nodes at a time. So when it comes to our controllers, we don't want to take all 3 controllers down at once. So we have an update serial of 1. But if we go to our compute role and we look for update serial again, we can see here it's 25. So this is going to do 25 compute nodes at a time, because it's a bit easier to do compute nodes and there's a little bit less risk. Whereas your control plane, we need to restart pacemaker services and migrate services away from controllers to do the update. So when you run the update run on the compute role, it's going to update 25 at a time. When you do it on controllers, it'll do 1 at a time. Once the update run has completed on all of the roles, then we run the update converge. And what the update converge is doing is it's unsetting values that were previously set during the update prepare. And we saw in TripleO Heat templates, we have that environment file called update prepare YAML, and that stops it from doing pre and post deployment. Or if you're on Queens, it removes the deployment steps, workflow steps, pre and post deployment. And that makes sure there's no configuration happening during that time. We just want to render those playbooks. During the converge, we unset those values. So they go back to their defaults. And now we're going to run basically a normal overcloud deploy at this stage, where we reconfigure services using the updated Puppet modules that were updated during the update run. And once that's finished, that's it, we're done. That's the update process from start to finish. So I hope that that has helped to provide some insights around what's actually happening at each stage during the update process. And I'll leave some links to some documentation as well that might also help. And I hope that if you have some issues, it helps you to know what's actually happening, and you can look into those various aspects to investigate the problem. But the most important thing is that every update starts with a backup. Make sure you've got the backup of the undercloud, backup of the overcloud. If anything happens, you can restore from those. And make sure those scripts that we use, the update script and our deploy script, are all tracked by Git, so that if anything changes, we can monitor that. It's good to use Git artifacts for like change requests, for example. If you're going to change something, you can provide the pull request that you're submitting, that commit, as your artifact for your change request. And the same with minor updates. Make sure you compare that update script to your deploy script. Has anything changed since your last update? Do you need to update your deploy script? Make sure it's the same, because if anything is missing, you can have very unintended consequences. It could break things. We really don't want to do that. So just be careful. Make sure you've got everything in Git. Make sure you check that nothing has changed between those 2 scripts, and make sure you have those backups. And if you do, I'm sure your TripleO upgrades will go really smooth.